Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking storms across the central portion of the U.S. today. Mainly a late night system, so overnight tonight, those nocturnal storms will pose a hail and a wind risk for a good portion of the U.S. Tomorrow, we shift off to the east, and we've got a slight risk for all tornadoes, hail, and wind risk, and all hazards risk tomorrow on Saturday. So let's go ahead and get started here. Higher hail risk, that is your first headline today, because yes, we do have a pretty impressive hail risk not only today, but also tomorrow. It's that fall severe weather season that's coming back into play. Friday and Saturday are going to be our big storm days, but mainly Saturday because that's whenever our tornado risk comes into play. You've really got to keep an eye on Saturday for that tornado risk. And then we go back to the Atlantic, where we do have two areas of concern. We're going to be watching for two areas, but mainly one in particular that I want to talk about that could be coming a little bit closer to the U.S. Hey, before we get started on the forecast, I know we're waiting for a few more people to join us this afternoon. I want to go ahead and tell you about a very exciting opportunity to win OU football tickets. Now, it was a competitive competition last time. We gave away OU football tickets. We're going to do it again. So if you didn't win last time, try again. OU versus Ole Miss, October 25th at 11 a.m. Here's what you have to do to win. Scan this QR code right up here. What you're going to do is you're going to go to HailTrace/OU-tickets, HailTrace.com/OU-tickets. Enter in either on Google Play or the App Store, or you can take a demo and you can be entered into that contest. So we're going to move on to the forecast now. We've got a very busy forecast today. What happened yesterday? We like to look back on what happened the day before because we often say the trend is your friend. Something that happened yesterday could again happen today, so we'll keep an eye on it. What we saw yesterday were very isolated storms. We saw a little bit of hail coming from this. I think one of the most surprising things is we got a tornado warning out of this storm that was just to the north of Burlington, Colorado. And then we got a few hail reports just on the western side of Kansas across the Colorado-Kansas state line. Now we've got a cold front moving through, and that was initiating all of those storms yesterday. It's going to help to initiate storms again today. So what I see right off the bat here is that we've got showers and storms across the southern side of Nebraska right now. Now this is going to help to initiate storms later on today around St. Joe, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. That's going to be our first area that we're watching for storms today. So this line of storms right here will be something to keep an eye on later today. For the rest of the country, we're pretty dry right now. I know that we've got some people on TikTok watching from New York. You guys are dry. Southeastern portion of the U.S. also dry. A little bit of cloud cover over Arkansas, which may impact storms tomorrow, but I don't think it'll be too impactful for storms tomorrow. That's where we're watching for storms tomorrow, Arkansas and Missouri. 75 degrees right now in Kansas City, but do you see the big difference across the country? You go up to the north and west, it's a lot cooler up here. As we head into the next few days, it's storms first, then a cool down after that. For everyone across the country, it looks like cooler temperatures are coming very briefly, but we have to get through these storms first. So let's go ahead and talk about that hail risk today. All right, where's that hail risk? You can see it highlighted there in yellow. This is your significant hail model, and what we look for here is yellow usually means quarters to maybe $50 size hail. If we get into those oranges, we bump that up to ping pong, maybe golf balls, and then those reds are hen egg, maybe even up to tennis ball size hailstones. So what do we see today? We're going to zoom down here in just a few minutes. We've got some of those yellows, maybe some oranges mixing in. One more time here from Kansas City to Oklahoma City. That's where our storm risk is today. Now I want you to notice that Kansas, it's going to be a very, very low risk for hail. Maybe a few larger hailstones in Wichita, maybe up to Emporia. But what we're really watching for here is going to be the western side of Oklahoma. Watch how we do have some deeper colors, deeper yellows, maybe even some oranges mixing in there in the western side of Oklahoma. So we use this to determine our hail forecast for today. But I want to go into tomorrow as well, because one thing that I've been watching from this model over the last few days is that early tomorrow morning, early Saturday morning, our significant hail model really wants to put these deeper yellows and maybe even some oranges on the eastern side of Oklahoma. I know that we don't get morning hail too much. However, it's absolutely possible tomorrow morning, again, from Oklahoma City to Tulsa and then out to the east, to get those larger hailstones. You're going to have to keep an eye on that tomorrow morning and into the early afternoon. Let's go to your current hail forecast. So again, these are for late night storms tonight and into early tomorrow morning. What we're watching for are those smaller hailstones up near Kansas City, but larger hailstones on the western side of Oklahoma, including places like Woodward, Clinton included in that, and maybe even up to Stillwater. Your most likely area to get hail with these storms is going to be south of KC into places like Emporia, Wichita, and then maybe down to Independence, but I think it becomes more of a wind risk as we go into the overnight hours, and not too worried about the hail in places like Stillwater and Independence, Kansas. But I mentioned Clinton earlier in that moderate risk for maybe more widespread scattered showers and storms, producing those larger hailstones just to the west of Oklahoma City. How large could that hail be? We initially said we're talking about $half size to maybe ping pong ball size hail. I think max hail size here only going up to golf ball size hail. So we've got 1 inch and 3/4. Golf ball size hail will be the max hail size for tonight. Again, that's late tonight. Nocturnal storms is what we're talking about here. In a different area of the U.S., so if we go a little bit farther to the north, that's where we see those wind risks start to increase. This map, as well as tomorrow's map, says 60 to 73 mile per hour wind speeds. However, I may bump that up as we get more data in over the next few hours to maybe up to 75, maybe up to 80 miles an hour. Maybe not for today, but definitely for tomorrow, I think that we could see some high winds. So again, we're going to put some more cities on the map here. Emporia, Independence, all in that low risk, but we could see a cluster of storms early tomorrow morning down in Stillwater that could produce some strong winds. Here's the good news for today. It's a very, very low tornado risk. Today's risk is going to be hail and high wind. That's what we're watching for. Let's move on to your timeline here. We're going to go to that timeline and talk about each city in particular. So put where you're watching from in the comments section. We can see that over here on the side of the screen. Luke is watching for that as well. So let me know where you're watching from, and we can kind of tailor this forecast to where you're watching from. As always, we start with a nationwide view. We want to show all of the cities across the U.S., and then we'll go down and talk city by city. So let's start in Kansas City here. I told you that those showers and storms that are moving through Nebraska right now are going to be what helps to initiate stronger storms later on in places like St. Joe and Kansas City. We're watching right here for more initiation later on this evening, shortly after you get home from work. You're going to start to see those tall towers building. You're going to start to see, hey, it looks like rain, right? As we head into the evening hours, so right around dinner time, 9 o'clock tonight, storms will start to unzip farther back to the south into places like Wichita. We have Ponca City on here right now. Thanks, Michael, joining on from Ponca. Yeah, you guys are going to get those nocturnal storms as well. Watch these storms hit Ponca City as we head into the late night hours. So you're asleep by this time, right? You may see those flashes of lightning, hear the rumble of thunder. This is when we also have that hail risk out in the western side of Oklahoma. I talked about Clinton. There's your cluster of storms in Clinton. Springfield, Missouri, you're going to have to wait just a few more hours to get those storms. It'll most likely be an early Saturday morning for you guys out in Springfield. So we've got about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's whenever we start to watch for places like Tulsa, Ponca City, Springfield, all in the path for storms early tomorrow morning. So you may have seen an updated Storm Prediction Center risk today, and that's accounting for the timeline here. What we're seeing is a big trough that's moving through the U.S., and it's delaying those storms coming in, pushing that timeline a little bit later on in the day on Saturday. So that brings us to early Saturday morning. Let's go ahead and talk about Saturday. We do have an increased flash flood risk on Saturday for not only places like Oklahoma and Kansas, but also down into southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, all the way down into Louisiana, and then up into the Midwest. We're going to see a lot of rain through these areas, maybe not just once, but twice. 2 rounds of storms is not out of the picture here. Then we move up to the northeast on Sunday, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. I want to break down Saturday's storm risk first. So we talked about Friday. There's Saturday, a slight risk, a level 2 on a scale of 5 for places like Little Rock, Memphis, Joplin. Dallas is in that marginal risk, and Oklahoma City is out of the risk on Saturday. All right, let's move to Saturday. There's your Sunday risk as well. Let's talk about Saturday. So here are your all hazards storm risk on Saturday. We've got Tulsa in that level 1 maybe level 1 to 2 risk. You're right on the line there. Little Rock at a level 2, that slight risk there. Memphis, Tennessee also in the level 2 risk. St. Louis, Missouri at that level 1, almost to that level 2. And Nashville, Tennessee, I want to watch for that tornado risk and high wind risk out in Nashville. Now I'm going to break down the risks here because what we're going to see is a widespread scattered shower and storm event on Saturday. You can see just how many people are getting rain on Saturday. That's going to contribute to that flash flood threat. Let's break it down for you. So we talked about early Saturday morning. We're focused on Tulsa and Springfield and Joplin. We're going to be continuing to track this to the east as we see these storms unzip back down to the central portion of Oklahoma and then down into Texas by early Saturday morning, maybe about 9 or 10 in the morning. At that point, St. Louis is also getting storms, so you can see how widespread this storm coverage is. We're really watching for storms to really increase in intensity as we head into the early afternoon. So Dallas, your storm timeline right now is right around lunchtime or just a few hours after. We've still got storms going on in southern Missouri at this time as well. This is what I'm watching for the shift from a hail risk to a wind risk. In the afternoon, what we're going to see is we're going to see that shift from a hail risk in eastern Oklahoma, maybe even northern Texas, to then a wind and a tornado risk as we head into the afternoon and peak heating of the day. It gets hot right in the middle of the day there, and that's whenever we're going to see that shift to more of a wind and a tornado risk. So that happens right there, and what you're going to see from some of these radar signatures is that bowing motion where it kind of creates a backwards C shaped. That's going to signify some strong winds. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that and then watch for some of these leading storms, these leading supercells could be your tornado producers. So we've got an MCS coming through here, and what we're going to see is through Little Rock, Memphis, through the afternoon and evening hours. We could even see some nocturnal action here as these storms continue to track to the east into places like Tennessee and western Kentucky. So there's your risks. Let's go ahead and break down those individual storm hazards here. Here's your wind forecast. And as I mentioned earlier, I may go back through a few models and I may look at where we could increase this to some of those stronger wind speeds, maybe up to 70, 75 miles an hour, just a little bit above what we have right here, highlighted there in teal. But some of the places that we're watching for the most likelihood for strong winds will be places like Little Rock, Memphis, and Springfield. Very isolated risk for strong winds down in Tulsa, Dallas, Louisiana, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. Moving on here to your hail forecast on Saturday. I told you it's going to be mainly an eastern Oklahoma risk, maybe out in western Arkansas. Your max hail size here will be up to hen egg sized hail, but most of those hailstones will be a little bit smaller than that. We're talking maybe ping pong to quarter size hail. So a little bit smaller, but I told you guys earlier, we're talking about the eastern side of Oklahoma, maybe into northern Texas, western side of Arkansas, and as we talked about earlier, Springfield and Joplin included in that risk as well. Let's get some more cities on the board because I told you I would tailor this forecast to the places that we talked about. So we talked about Springfield, we've got Joplin on here as well. Bentonville and that level 2 risk for hail tomorrow. And then as we head down to the south, I've got Durant, Oklahoma on the board as well. Dallas, it's an isolated risk. Texarkana, very similar. And you can see that shift, right? Where we go from that hail, the major risk will be hail, and then the hail sizes will go down, and then we get more of a wind risk as we head farther off to the east. Taking a look at that tornado forecast, I mentioned we're going to see a better chance for tornadoes right in the center portion of Arkansas. So we've got a level 2 risk for tornadoes on Saturday. Again, this will be mainly Saturday afternoon, right around lunchtime, and then the few hours after that. I highlighted places like the western side of Tennessee, southern portion of Illinois, western side of Kentucky as well, and southern Missouri. Any weather questions before we move on here? Ponca City, Springfield, Mike's on here as well saying that he loves this forecast. I'm not quite sure, but thanks for joining us. Let us know where you guys are watching from today. We'll try to tailor this forecast and we'll take any questions as we go throughout the rest of the forecast as well. Just a little recap of what we've talked about so far. Storms for tonight, and we're talking late tonight and into the overnight hours. This model is showing 1:30 in the morning. We've got storms from Kansas City to Wichita to the western side of Oklahoma. And then as we head into tomorrow, an impressive risk across the eastern side of Oklahoma. This is your hail risk right here. And then into Arkansas. Now your tornado risk is going to extend just a little bit farther to the east. And then as we head into tomorrow, we have another risk for hail up to the northwest, and so that includes places like Ohio, to West Virginia, and then into Pennsylvania, and even portions of New York. I know we had someone from New York watching on TikTok earlier. So there's an overview of your forecast. We've got Illinois watching on here. Thanks for watching from Illinois. We appreciate you guys jumping on here. Yeah, especially if you're in the southern side of Illinois, you have to keep an eye on storms on Saturday. I'll show you your risk here. There you go. There's your risk in Illinois. Got another person from Illinois. What do we have? Eastern, central Illinois. Austin's jumping on from Memphis. Anyone in Memphis getting hail? Great question, Austin. Now, it's going to be a pretty low chance for Memphis to get hail, and your hail sizes will probably be pretty small as well, but I can show you the forecast here. So what we were talking about earlier is that as storms continue to move from the eastern side of Oklahoma and into places like central Arkansas, you're going to see that shift from a hail risk to a wind and tornado risk. So for people in Memphis, I know we also had, what was our other city? Tennessee? What was that? Nashville. Nashville asked about hail as well. Very, very low risk in Nashville for tomorrow. I would not bet on Nashville for hail tomorrow. However, you do have a wind and a tornado risk tomorrow, so you absolutely have to keep an eye on that. So let's go ahead and pull up that wind risk one more time here. There's your tornado risk. I think it barely extends maybe just west of Nashville. And there's your wind risk. And that does include Nashville for tomorrow. So thanks for commenting where you guys are watching from. We'll continue to take questions over the next few minutes. But while we wait for your questions to come in, I want to go ahead and take a look at the Atlantic forecast. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, did you guys know that this is not uncommon to get severe weather in October? We oftentimes get a second round of severe weather season in the fall. And actually, our newest meteorologist, Michaela Smith, she broke down that risk for us. Michaela, tell us about the fall severe weather season. Where are we at for this time of the year? Are we about to see more active weather as we head into the next few weeks?
Thank you, Taylor. We are talking about fall severe weather being back in the forecast, as Taylor's already explained some in this forecast. And I want to show you kind of statistically speaking where we are in 2025 using some hail reports damage-wise compared to years past to show you if we are below average, closer to average, or above average so far for this storm season. Now, as you can see with this green line that is below the black line, that is the statistical mean. So that's where we typically see as the year progresses. These, again, hail damage, the LSR reports. These are reports that come into the National Weather Service, and we can see where we've had the most hail, how much hail we've seen in one given year. And with the green line being below that, that is 2025's current number. So we have not had as many hailstorms, or at least damaging hailstorms, as maybe years past. Now, just because we are behind the statistical mean doesn't mean we still can't see more hailstorms over the next several months. I'm going to show you a graph now that shows how we always typically see a secondary severe weather season. So you typically think of severe weather in the months of maybe March, April, May, into June, but then there is usually a secondary season that you start to see in the fall around October, heading into November even as well. Here in Oklahoma, where our company is based, in 2021, in October, we had 31 tornadoes, so we set a record. And then again, just last year in November, there were 35 tornadoes in the month of November in 2024. So there's definitely times that we've had a very busy fall severe weather season. And now that we're starting to talk about more active weather over the next several days, it is not uncommon to see that uptick this time of year. So with storms being in the forecast over the next several days, make sure you're staying weather aware. We'll have all the updates here at HailTrace, and I'll send things back over to Taylor. She's going to break down a little bit more information for you going into the next few days, and then what this weekend and next week will also be looking like.